Yeah, I'm Julie Brown from JayBee Safety. Keeping people safe and healthy at work is what I do. I do everything more or less but food, really, so that's quite good. Ruth will do that for you. So with risk assessment, everyone's panicking about COVID, quite rightly, I suppose, but this is no different really to any other risk. It's always been the law since 1974 to carry out risk assessments for absolutely everything we do. So risk assessment, I'm just going to talk briefly about risk assessments and give you some actual examples of some control measures that you might think about putting in place, and then also a return to work assessment. And I did share a couple of weeks ago an example of a risk assessment. If you didn't get that, you're welcome to have that. And also I'm willing to share like a Word document of a return to work assessment. If you've got several staff, it's worth going through a checklist, I believe, to make sure that you've covered everything, all your bases, that they haven't got a temperature or any symptoms and so on, and get that signed up, because I believe going forward that this could be another one of these flaming claims, this claims culture that we're all in could be the next big no win, no fee thing if someone got COVID or what have you. So whilst we need to protect our own health and everyone else's health that we're responsible for, we also need to think about protecting your company as well. So the hazard, over there. Obviously, I think we all know what the hazard is by now. It's dealing with the airborne infectious disease, COVID-19 virus. And I think you all know the symptoms are a high temperature, persistent cough, and shortness of breath. So like any other hazard, you've just got to think of what is the hazard, what is the potential for harm, and basically what are you going to do about it in order to minimize that risk. The law says so far as is reasonably practicable. That's all you have to do in the law. And I'm trying to think about getting back to the basics. It's the same as any other hazard in the workplace. It's there, and what are we going to do about it to minimize that risk? There's obviously been a lot of law around this. I'm sure we all know the 2 meter rule now. You must stay 2 meters apart and wash your hands thoroughly. Now, and I know that we all know, everybody knows that. But as a responsible person and a business owner, you have got to almost be like a master of the obvious. You've got to tell people that, and that's why, if you're going to supermarkets and so on, you see the line reminding people all the time. Because I don't know about you, but already when something happens initially and it's urgent, everybody does it rigorously all the time. And then when you've been doing it for some time, the urgency of it kind of slides down a wee bit. And that's when we could have problems later on. So you've got to have these visual reminders and keep reminding people. As I say, the same as any other risk. And using hand washing gel, hand washing for at least 20 seconds, or singing happy birthday twice. We've probably all heard that as well. Hand gel must have at least 60% alcohol content. And just a note on that while I think about it, you may also, if you're talking to your own employees regarding the hand gel, remind them that they must make sure that it's dry before they touch anything hot, or light up a cigarette, or if someone's in a workshop doing hot works, for example, a hand grinder that would give off sparks, because there have been a couple of very serious accidents where someone's gone up in flames after using hand gel because of the very high alcohol content, and it is highly flammable. And also not to keep it in direct sunlight as well, in their car, tuck it away somewhere. And then, PPE if it's needed. So as I said, it's the same as any other hazard in the workplace. And all you've got to do, trying to bring it back to basics, is what controls will you put in place to minimize the risk in your specific work environment? You know your work environment better than anybody else, and you may get one or two of your staff that you know are sensible and that you can trust, and sit around a table and thrash out the best things that you're going to do to try and keep people apart and minimize the risk as far as you possibly can. Once you've decided upon those risk control measures, you need to brief all of your staff and keep a record of that. Make sure that they've all signed it. And this is partly for protecting yourselves as well. So basically, you need, have a little of a brainstorming session, write down what you plan to do and implement it with visual things like signs. Train it out to your employees, as I say, make sure they've signed it. And, you might use things, you might have physical barriers or lines or, signs with the 2 meter apart signs up, and in your toilets, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. It is quite simple, and because it's now gone on for so long, everybody does really know what they're supposed to do. But as I say, you're almost a bit like a master of the obvious to remind them of that. This is a rather busy slide, I know, but this is an example of some risk control measures that I've done for a company this week, and they visit people's houses doing repairs, just general repair work. So as an example, or if you've got an office, or this could be a reception into a hotel or wherever, the entrance to the office or your premises, you may clearly mark it up in 2 meter lines and various places around your premises as a reminder, so that it's easy to social distance correctly. We took a view, and we have taken a view with several companies, that even if the government are saying 1 meter plus, whatever that means, we're going to stick to 2 meters as much as we possibly can. And I know that might be difficult in a small cafe or restaurant, because if you take the scenario, if in a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, people will always drive at 50. If you say a 30-mile-an-hour limit, they're going to drive at 35 to 40. So the minute you say 1 meter, the next thing they're going to be 2 feet away from you, or breaking the 1 meter rule rather than the 2 meter rule. So you need to consider not just your rules and trying to implement them, but you've got to consider people's behaviour. Because I did this toolbox talk with 15 builders the other morning, and straight away, and they all know they should be 2 meters apart, and they're all maybe 1 meter apart already. And I just said, before we start, could you have a look around, and if you're not in the same household, can you please keep your distance, move apart? So don't be frightened to keep reinforcing those rules as well. I think that's quite important. So as I say, this is just a few little examples of exact control measures that we talked about the other day. If a contractor or visitor needed to enter the office, they will be asked to keep their distance and use the hand gel immediately on arrival, situated at the front door, and if they wish on their departure. So a hand gel or sanitisation station is in a prime situation with a sign on it to say, please use the hand gel. The person in the office will sign in the visitor or the contractor so as not to share pens or to come too close. Make sure you've got good signage, and you don't have to go out buying expensive signage. You can download logos and use a laminator, because as and when guidance changes or you want to change it, you can quite easily make yourself up some new cheap signs. Ensure you also do a hand washing toolbox talk to your own staff, and I have one again that I'm happy to let you have as a freebie. You're welcome to that as well. And this is with guys going into a household. There would be a conversation with the householder to establish if they're a vulnerable or extremely vulnerable person in those categories, and if it is the case, only emergency or urgent work would be undertaken. We also have what we called a COVID-19 poster, which again was giving information to the householder about what we expect of them before the person goes in. You know, like they would open the doors, for example, for them to minimize any touch points. And then thoroughly washing their hands or use the hand sanitizer provided by the company, as it does have a high alcohol content. Oh, there we go. And again, not accepting anything to eat or drink from that householder, because I think they had a lovely old lady that makes them lots of cakes every time they go there, so they're going to be lacking cake, sadly. Let's see if I can pop you up there. An important point to think of is also your first aiders. It isn't recommended on the whole for most work scenarios to wear face masks and gloves, because it does get you under a false sense. You know, people are wearing gloves quite a lot of the time, and then you get into a false sense of security, touching everything, and you could be spreading the virus actually on the gloves. It's also been proven that there's limited protection to the person wearing the mask. It's more the people that you may well be coming into contact with or breathing over. And also there is something that is saying that really that all the masks, if everyone's using them everywhere, they're going to run out for the really urgent jobs like the NHS and care workers and so on. But for first aiders of any description, if first aid is required and you need to attend a casualty for whatever reason and get up closer than the recommended 2 meters, then they should don the full PPE with a Tyvek suit, a mask, disposable gloves and a full face screen. If the person does need to be resuscitated, it's recommended that if there's a mask, pop a mask on them or a piece of cloth over their mouth and nose, and do not give rescue breaths, just chest compressions. If you want to know more about that in more detail, there's some really good advice on St. John's Ambulance website, and there's actually a free course you can do as well. But you just carry on doing the chest compressions until further help arrives, the paramedics. Or the other thing I would highly recommend is, if you do not have a defib yourself, find out where your nearest one is. So that, you know, that's a good tip anyway under normal circumstances. Find out where the nearest defib is so that you can get that to that person. You're not going to let someone there keel over just because of COVID. If you cover their mouth, you've got your mouth covered. The likelihood of transmission is extremely low, which is what this is all about. It's bringing the risk down to as low as is reasonably practicable. In some jobs and some cases, it's not possible to be socially distant all the time. And an example of that is the refuse collectors. You know, they can't all have a lorry each, so they are sitting side by side. So they're thoroughly cleaning their cabs, thoroughly hand washing, but they are sitting side by side. The advice is not to breathe over each other. So we can't always, in absolutely every situation, keep the distance. How am I doing for time? Okay, and then this is just my last little slide. This is just a few things on a return to work checks for employees. And as I say, I'm happy to send you this. I've got a document that you can have. This is just taken from it. Please confirm employees do not have any of the commonly associated symptoms of the virus, high temperature, persistent cough, or they've confirmed that they are symptom-free. So this is them declaring that they're symptom-free. Has the employee been briefed on all COVID-19 updated safety measures that you're going to implement in your business? Has the employee been informed of any clients specific COVID-19 communications? Any additional PPE required? Confirm the PPE items are received by the employee and what they are. Has the employee completed any return to work handover if necessary? You know, and then basic things like have they checked their voicemail and changed responses? Has the employee removed out of office response if you're working in an office? And that really that is it. Okay, any questions?
Excellent, thanks Julie. So if there's an immediate question or two, and then we'll swap over and get Ruth online. If you can stop sharing screen now, and then we can see everyone again. So in the middle at the bottom.
Sorry about that. Where am I? Oh, there we go, found it.
Yep, Caroline, I think is in there quickly with a question. Just unmute first, Caroline. There you go.
Yes, please. Is it all right to have hand gel 70% in a conservatory, which gets quite hot and sunny and exposed to the sun? But that's by the front door.
What, inside or outside?
Inside.
Yeah, well, I'd say that sounds pretty hot, you know. I mean, with health and safety, it's not black and white. To me, I would say no, 70% in a conservatory, no thank you. It sounds a bit, you know, is it direct sunlight, you know?
Yes.
Probably is, isn't it?
Yes, I don't know where else to put it.
So you don't know where else to put it. Can't you have it outside?
No, not outside the door, I don't think. That's real sunlight then.
We could have it in a box. I don't know. You'll have to
Put it in a box, the lid, yeah, something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, something like that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And as we were saying just before the call started, there's a lot of common sense solutions around a lot of this, as long as everyone's keeping safe.
Yeah.
So I asked Ruth to join us as well today, because even if you're not a restaurant or a tea room like mine, a lot of businesses deal with food, whether you're a self-catering operation or even just maybe a staff canteen or whatever. And so there are a lot of useful details around the food health and safety world. And Ruth, if you're happy to share that with us, and then we'll get into all sorts of difficult questions for you both.
Somebody I know, going back to your sunlight alcohol, they've put some silver reflective around it to reflect the sun. So another top tip maybe. Do I need to introduce myself? I do, don't I?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I was and still am sort of an environmental health officer. I've got no power, so I'm just here to answer questions and to help share top tips. I've done in the last few days, I'm going to share my screen, okay? Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Cool. Risk assessments for restaurants. Now, I've got a slide at the end. I'm just going to go run through it, and just it's the guidance that came out at the beginning of the week, well, this time last week actually, that confused me, confused many other environmental health officers. So if we're confused by it, then don't feel that you shouldn't be confused. And I think the difficulty is everywhere is very unique. So you can give a general outline, but you can't say exactly what. There's no right answer. It's working it out for yourself, and that's the problem, because as we discussed earlier, you can spiral out of control and just get silly with it all. So I'll just run through like your customer journey. Now, whether that's somebody coming to stay or whether that's somebody coming into the tea rooms, I'll just run through it and I'll share what I've done with other businesses that we've already done their risk assessments for. So what you do need to do is they have to come in their certain group. So it's 2 households. One of those can be a support bubble. So if your support bubble is made up of 2 households, that support bubble can have 1 more household with it. If it's 6 different people from 6 different households, they have to be outside. And even that, there's another section that a colleague of mine goes, no, it's a spelling mistake. They think it's wrong. So how do you make sure, these are the suggested ways that you make sure you know that your customers are following, because you can't stand there and ask for their driving license or a utility bill. So if you've got a website or any communication, I'm thinking of your self-catering accommodation, put on there, please don't come if you've got these symptoms, and please can you make sure you're following these household rules. of or if you don't want to change it all the time, just say the latest government rules of who should attend a restaurant or a pub or a cafe, whatever it is. So that's you telling them, because they do have to take responsibility as well. It has to be a joint thing, doesn't it? I think, not just all down on you. Booking people in, booking them in, so they just 10 minutes apart. So if you were, none of you are restaurants, I think, but if it was a restaurant, instead of everyone coming at 6, it's 6, 10 past. And again, a lot of restaurants would do that type of thing anyway. Restaurants do already take contact details, as you do if you're a hotel or a self-catering. It's cafes that you might not get those details. So one cafe is just doing a little card, and as the customer's queuing, they're asking them to fill in the card. Obviously, the member of staff who takes that card back has got to consider that's a dirty piece of paper, so they would need to clean their hands or antibacterial gel. One business I work with, they're going to take advantage and use it for get it GDPR approved. So if you want us to be on our mailing list, please tick this, and then they can collect it. You have to keep that for 21 days. This is for track and trace. So what they're going to do is they're going to put it in an envelope, label that envelope the 4th of July, put it in a locked cupboard, and then obviously in 21 days, throw it all away unless they've agreed to let you keep it for GDPR reasons. So that's that. I'll carry on because I'm used to asking questions and talking to people, not just talking at them. So this is awkward. When they arrive, so think about the queue. If you're someone that's going to queue outside, make sure it's for walk-ins, because you can't always, I know one restaurant, they're only taking bookings, but others are taking bookings and walk-ins as well. So where are they going to queue? If you're in the New Forest, you could take their phone number and call them. But if you're in the middle of a high street, they're going to have to queue outside, really. So make sure that you've got your 2 meters apart. Put a sanitizer on arrival. Make sure that there's reminders, signs, as Julie said, to socially distance. I won't mention the first aid mask thing as well. Toilets we've talked about a lot. Now, if you've just got one toilet, obviously it's one in, one out. But if you've got an entrance to the toilet, and then there's 3 toilets inside there, it's like, what are you going to think? How are you going to know what the rules are? I know Green King pubs have got a little, you can Google it, they've got a little sign that's elbow operated, so when they go in, it's going to say it's busy. When it's not, I just think somebody's going to cut their elbow on that. One idea I had was put little foot operated lights by the door, and then get your customers to switch it on when they're in the toilet, switch it off when they come out. Depends whether you're in a drinking establishment, because that might end up broken. It was just an idea. Okay, so making sure that people know if there's a toilet rule, if there's some rules when you get to the toilet, say these are the rules when you're using the toilet. The guidance says tell your guests to stay seated unless they're going to the toilet. It's like being at school again. One business I've heard of is got a doorbell on every single table, and if the customers need anything, the doorbell's connected to a tablet, and then somebody will come to them and go, we need the toilet, and they go, oh yeah, it's free, and you can go off to the toilet. So there's, I think, wow. Anyway, if that's what you want to do. Now, the 1 meter plus, the plus means if you look at the guidance, the restaurant guidance, again, it's all quite vague. The plus means extra measures, not a logistical distance. So it's things like, I'll read it briefly, keeping the time close to you as short as possible, using screens or barriers back to back, and then reducing the number of people in each area. So probably you will have to lose some tables if you're a restaurant, and there will be a loss of tables. Put as many tables as you can outside, and then just arrange them so that people by side or back to back. For delivering food to the table, instead of going around the table and dishing it up to each one, just pop it at the end of the table, and your customers will then have to serve themselves from there. Disposable menus, or bring your cutlery once they've sat down. A lot of businesses, they're just wrapping up the cutlery in a serviette and then bringing that to the table. Salt and pepper sachets, and then disposable ramekins, or you could use ramekins and take them and wash them up. It makes no difference in that way. trying to get people to pay when they order. If you've got an app and you can get your menu on an app and they pay for it, order it, and you don't have to worry about that contact as well. Oh, toilets, there we go. Toilets, yeah, like Julie mentioned, paper towels inside and then bin outside so they can open the door with a paper towel. You could put a timer in there for them so they can time themselves for their 20 seconds. Payment by card, if possible. Obviously, some even Wetherspoons, even though Wetherspoons have got the app, that their customers don't need to go up, that because they're very aware their clientele is that there's some old people, and older people don't necessarily have an app, so they are going to have possibly going to have a cash till. And the solution to that is the responsibility of the person taking the cash to then wash their hands after they've handled it. During lockdown, I've had a little stint in a shop, and every time cash came near me, I would smother it in antibac before it went anywhere. So you need someone like me with issues working there. Wipe the card machine, contactless if possible. If not, just give it a gentle, when I say gentle, I mean don't smother it and break it on your card machine. Leaving, if you've got the logistics of the place, one-way system would be great. If you can get people to be escorted off, but it's again the number of staff you've got, or again, when you sit people down, you go, please be respectful of our social distancing. When you're leaving, it's about your pinch points. Where are your pinch points? If there's some way of getting a one-way system for that reason, then do that. Clearing tables and chairs. So really, when this doesn't go well with people who own restaurants, they don't like it, but the table's got to be empty when people arrive, and then empty when you leave it, and then think where people's hands go. I can't show you. I'm showing you on my chair. It's not just the seated bit, it's underneath the chair and underneath the table, just where people might put their hands. Because probably you know this, but you are infectious, or you can be infectious for 2 days before symptoms show. Obviously, there's also people who are symptomless carriers, so they might be there, and you've got to assume that everybody could have it just because they're not showing symptoms. They think, yeah, I can go and eat out, but I'm fine. But they might still be coughing and spluttering. I talked about decorative plants today with somebody. They asked me, should we take them away? I said yes. They shouldn't have asked me because they didn't want to. So then you go through the logical steps of, they went, well, shall we say that we'll clean the leaves if they're touched? And I went, right. Did you see them? Will you see them touch it? And will you know which leaf to clean? So in the end, we went, well, you just run through the logic of, well, if I've got it and I cough next to the plant's contaminated, the next person who sits there will only pick that up if they touch the leaves and then touch their mouths. So to put a sign there to say, do not touch the plants. So there's a control measure there to say, don't touch these. Somebody might have spat on them. I hope they just spat on them. Okay. Kitchen. So kitchen, again, that's a lot of kitchens have been doing takeaway. So that bit's already smooth and in place. But of course, when the plates come back, you've got to treat them as contaminated. So if you can, most kitchens do have a designated pot wash area. Make sure your pot wash person does dirty, cleans hands, then does the clean. So it's that, making sure that they separate that. Again, they should be doing that. And luckily kitchens should be following all good hygiene practices anyway, should be. Though I wouldn't have a job if they weren't. So there we go. If you can, and I know a lot of you are small businesses, so 2 teams would be great. So if one team goes down with it, you've still got another team, but I realise that's quite impractical. Right, hotels. I've just literally started looking at the hotel stuff. So I think some of you will have more questions on this. So again, arrivals, you're going to get their details. You always have done that, so that's nothing new. But maybe you could do a booking in online rather than booking in on the desk. Again, most people do that these days. Think about the keys. So when you get the keys back, that you sanitize them. The rooms you're not going to like because you're going to have to take everything. if you look at, well, it's not guidance. If you look at the recommendations, is you don't have your spare pillows in the cupboard, you don't have your spare blankets. If people want those, they ask for it, because essentially anything they touch is then potentially contaminated. So the less in there, the less you've got to take out and clean. I was thinking about the whole tea and coffee today. I would leave, I know it doesn't go well, but I would leave disposable cups in there, because if I went to a hotel now, I would be boiling the kettle and sanitizing my cup anyway, but not everyone's going to do that. You also don't leave out a massive amount of tea and coffee. You know, again, usually in peacetime before all this, you'd leave out a stash and then you would top it up. Well, now you just leave out one coffee, one tea, 2 sugars maximum. And then if they need any more, they'll have to call up for them. Otherwise, in theory, you've got to chuck all of that away. Same with your little freebies, soap and everything. Although most people take those away with them anyway. But just bear in mind that they'd have to be thrown away. And then thinking about where you're going to clean. So you don't want to remove your luggage racks, because obviously you've got them in to prevent bed bugs. So keep them in, but assume they've been touched. So all of those things just that you need to clean. Think about what needs to be cleaned. I think that's my last slide. So that's it. I'm ready for questions.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Ruth. So if you could unshare your screen, and then we've covered quite a few things. And of course, even though there's only maybe Hockeys and myself who are in that world of restaurants and the hotels, hopefully you're all going to go and support local tea rooms, shops and restaurants, and follow Jane and Claire's guidance to shop local and support local. So yeah, please do. And at least you will understand when you're given a nasty little sachet why that you got that instead of our very expensive sugar lumps that we used to give out. We hate it in hospitality. I hate every second of it. I can't shake hands with people. I can't come close to people, which may be a good thing. It's going to be difficult. But if everyone could contribute and do their bit by being reasonable. I've had one nasty old man shouting at us already, and it really, really upsets the staff and puts everyone back on edge. I'd rather shut the door than have lots of that over the coming weeks. So we've got a nice big sign up saying, be nice, because, you know, that's what people need to do. So I'm going to be nice and give you some time for any random questions, try and catch out our experts. That's what we try and do. It worked last week with David. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I think I've got Philip had his hand up.
Hello there. Yes, I am unmuted, I take it.
You are.
Okay, I'm self-catering, but I'm thinking in terms of a restaurant where you've obviously got curtains and drapes, that sort of thing. You can't really do much about them, but obviously we have those in a self-catering establishment. What do you recommend in that regard? How do we deal with that issue?
Right, bear with me. I'll go through the stupid things before I get to the sensible answer.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were breaking up a bit, but you're there now.
Yeah? No? Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Fog the whole premises. Whether you want to... Oh, did you hear me at all? I was just saying, there are some companies that do fogging now. Cleaning companies have adapted real quick, and they'll come in and fog a room. I don't know what that costs and how easy it is or how freely available they are. The other thing is, at the end of the week of having somebody in, why don't you just spray the curtains with a bit of antibac? You know, with your spray.
Okay.
Thanks, Ruth. Rob,
Nobody should be licking the curtains.
No, but you've got the same issue in a restaurant. You can't stop your customers touching the curtains if they want to look out the window, for example.
Yeah, I can see a market new signs there, which Jane will produce for you, saying "Do not touch the curtains." But Rob, I think you had something.
Yeah, I can't comment on people licking the curtains, but I can tell you at the community centre in Lyndhurst, we're getting every room defogged. Every room fogged to debug it before we let the staff in, let alone the public. And it's costing us about 140 quid to do the whole centre. It's not very much. It's a guy called Pest, Birds and Bugs down at Sway.
Excellent. Could you pop that on the chat for us?
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll go to Caroline.
Sorry, I did read somewhere that you should put a notice asking people to put gloves on and pick up a bit of paper or tissue or something to draw when they draw the curtains. And I don't know if the spray would stain the curtains. Another question, I don't know.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Whether you want to be spraying the curtains.
Get them wet.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about being, bringing the risk down as far as is reasonably practicable. You've got to weigh up in terms of time, cost, trouble, effort and money against the actual risk control. It's going to be so minuscule chance of someone getting it off of a curtain that someone else has touched, and you don't, assuming that they've got it even. I mean, you've got to sort of not worry about every minor thing, otherwise you just won't open up.
That's absolutely understood, Julia. We'll go to Claire and then to the person masquerading as Frederick. But I guess the point also for our self-catering owners is, or indeed B&B owners, if it's their own home, and of course they're going to be much more concerned. But Claire, you had your hand up earlier.
Just a tip really, I was with one of my members recently who was taking contactless card payment. They've got plastic screens up around their cashier's tills, and if you hold the card payment machine up to the plastic screen, it will take the payment through the screen. You've obviously then got to sanitize the screen, but it's not as difficult as sanitizing a fiddly card payment machine. So maybe that's helpful for some people.
Excellent. Thanks, Claire. Paula.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. In the holiday let, I think we might have covered it with the curtains, but we used to have quite a lot of cushions and things as part of the decor. Should I just take those out, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, it's certainly what we've done in the hotel. All the cushions have gone.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
we have beautiful white bed linen, and it looks very boring and sort of colourless.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
actually, it looks very clean now. Well, I mean, it's always
Yes.
clean, of course. But I mean, it looks very sort of sanitary because it's white. But Caroline.
Sorry, what I was thinking of doing, if I'm not interrupting there, is somewhere it suggested alternating the cushions. So I'm going to take them away for a week, plus the pillows, plus the duvets for a week, and replace them with others, and have throws on the sofas, which I will alternate each week.
Caroline, you're demonstrating common sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, well done. I mean, because that's the way we're going to get through any of this. Anyone else got any questions? Yeah, Paula again.
Oh, it's me again. In the shop, which is partially a gift shop, we have soft toys, etc. I haven't opened yet because I cannot decide what to do. People always touch things. Before they buy, particularly soft toys. What should I do about that? What's the guidance there?
Great.
Similar thing, I've done the Buckler's Hard Museum and their gift shop, so it'd be similar to you. And you're just going to have lots of signs up. Please do not touch unless purchasing.
Okay.
Please look and enjoy, but please don't touch unless purchasing.
Okay.
I think Jane had something, and then over to hockeys.
Yeah, I was only going to say I had a delightful time in the frock shop last Saturday, where you walk in, you sanitize your hands, you are then allowed to touch, which is kind of logical.
Yes, yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah, that is true actually. If you're sanitizing before you go in.
Sanitizing was compulsory on the way in. That was the key thing, really.
Yes.
Excellent. And how are you getting on over at hockeys because you've got lots of people coming in and out?
We've got lots of people. We are going to stay with just takeaway for now, to see, because we were thinking we could do it outside, just tables. But would we still have to take bookings if we did just tables, no seats?
You don't have to take bookings, but you do need to get their contact details, even if they're coming down. As far as I understand, even just because they're sitting down.
Okay, so even if
you don't have to take bookings in a restaurant.
No, but you do need to take their details.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So we're just going to stay as we are.
One way that somebody's coming up with Okay.
Yeah. No, say it, please. Yeah.
Somebody's, which I shared with Matthew earlier, because you don't have to use a disposable menu, but most people are just going with a cheap disposable menu piece of paper. So if you put a menu out and then they could write their name and contact details on the menu, you collect the menu back, and then it's the same as getting a card. So you could do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. We've got about 4 minutes for any other challenging questions. David, as always. No, you're still muted. Prefer the unmuted, David.
There we are. We good?
That's all right. You don't tell us you work with computers.
Sorry. Listen, I got dragged away with a phone call. I'm back. I do apologise. Talking about going into restaurants and things like that, what's the deal on taking your own kit in there? Because, as you've said about the little sachets of pepper and salt and things, which are quite horrible. What happens if you've got your own kit? Can you take your own? Can you take that in?
What, your own salt and pepper?
Yeah.
Chef might get upset, but
I wouldn't go there.
What?
No,
Taking your own?
Just be satisfied that it's open and there's a little bit of salt and pepper anyway. We know it's not going to be a posh one for now, but who cares in this situation?
I've got standards.
Well, odd luck.
For fear of being, it's
Gonna
quite
be one
common
of
in
those
Jewish
awkward
communities.
customers.
It's quite common in Jewish communities to have your own cutlery because, yeah, it's a Jewish thing. Same thing. I mean, it's an insult if you take it in because it's not clean enough, but that was the old ways. That was yesterday. What's happening today?
That's what you want to do, I suppose.
I was going to say, if you want to take your own cutlery and salt and pepper, you're not doing any harm by it, because as long as the staff aren't touching it, then you're not putting anyone at risk, really, are you?
Yep.
It means you've got to take it home and wash it up.
Caroline, and then Claire, if you've got anything just from what you've been hearing from your members, and then we're getting towards the end. Caroline?
Sorry, I'm hearing some people may ask if they can bring their own bedding, and I'm wondering whether to actually think that's a brilliant idea and say, yes, please do all bring your bedding, which would have to include duvets, pillows, but bath mat and tea towels as well. And then I wouldn't have to do the washing, and it might be that much safer. I don't know what other people think, and I'd love to be able to communicate with the people who do the same thing as me after this event, Matthew.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've insisted on that as a matter of interest.
Yeah, Philip?
Yes, I've insisted on that so that we won't accept the booking unless they're prepared to bring their own bedding, towels, duvet cover, etc.
Duvet,
duvet cover. We provide freshly laundered protectors for pillows and duvet.
Yeah.
They bring their sheet and duvet cover and pillow slips and tea towels and bathroom towels. And we just will quarantine the dirty protectors after they leave and put them away for 72 hours and then launder them.
And are you discounting? Are you giving them a discount because of this?
No. I'm telling them they can't come if they don't agree.
Yeah.
And that they've got to come very late and arrive very the other way around, and leave early and go late.
Yes. Change that to arrival at 4:30 and departure at 9 a.m.
I'm making it longer. Thank you.
I think the key thing, as we've heard throughout these business support hours, is just communicate this information. So yes, the hotel, we've changed to a later check-in. We're normally 2:00, but we're now 4:00. And so we just explain to people, as long as they know, then hopefully they're not going to be like the difficult old man who was banging on my desk. But just communicate with people. I think you've got an important question about pricing. If people are expecting it to be included, you'll just have to explain that. Or, I mean, there's huge demand at the moment, so you can get away with it. It's like a bed and breakfast not offering breakfast. I think you're going to have to look at pricing, but see how you go. So we're into the last minute. Who's going to be the lucky? Claire, did you have any other things from the Mark members?
Well, I just think that there's a delicate balance here. Obviously, everybody wants to encourage business back. They want to welcome their guests and customers. They want to make people feel safe and secure and willing to come out and eat. And there's a lot of people who are very nervous and very anxious about moving around again. A lot of people less so, but you know, those people who are less anxious about moving out are perhaps moving into communities where people are very anxious. So I think there is a balance in encouraging people to be thoughtful, be kind. I think that is the loveliest thing that we can keep encouraging people to do. The other message that I am receiving from my members is, you know, some of them have been very, very busy through this period. They have worked and worked and worked to try and keep up with demands, and they're really anxious that they're now going to be dropped. So that keep it local, shop local, eat local, give local, stay local, book direct. All of those messages are so important now, and you know, that's the focus of our campaign moving on from here as we open up. Is keep it safe, keep it local, do all you can to help rebuild and recover from what's been a very trying 3 months.
Absolutely, and be kind. Absolutely. Thanks very much. You know, somebody asked about being in contact with each other. Anytime, just email if if you're not in a group like Go New Forest or New Forest Mark, just email us and just say, can you please put me in touch with a couple of other self-catering owners, and we'll do our best for you with that. So we're coming into the last minute now. I normally give a guide to what's coming up next, and Bex is next. Is she with us, still with us, or no? I think she's just gone. Oh, see, there you are. There you are. You keep moving to a different place on the screen, but you're still here. Next week, Bex is going to help us look forwards. There's been a lot of looking back and looking down and looking at the now. About shaping the future you want to see around branding and how you're promoting yourselves and how you're coming across. And so Bex will be sharing that with us next week. The following week, we get into the murky world of SEO. If you don't know what that is, that may be a good thing. But if you're interested in finding more about increasing your online visibility, Claire from the Marketing Collective is sharing some key advice on that. And then 22nd of July, we have a session on retaining customer excellence. So this is a company who've worked with NFDC and NFBP before, Insight 6, Secret Shoppers and others. They've been helping businesses see how they come across to others. It's going to be a challenging time, and you know, good luck to everyone if you've already opened, if you're about to open, if you're thinking of opening. But we're trying to provide you with some nuggets of advice. So thanks, Ruth. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everyone. 4 o'clock bells ringing. So I'm afraid that's the end for today. And we'll see you all, I'm sure, again next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.